Former flat earthers, what made you come round? I talked to a flat earther about my job working for a company that tracks ship locations, routes, and speeds by satellite. We also had ways of monitoring carbon emissions based on fuel consumption and known weather conditions. None of this would work at all if the Earth was flat. Not a jot of it. I could only explain the most basic concepts, but it was enough for him to understand and realize that I was right and that he'd been convinced by someone who had no practical experience of the spherical nature of the Earth. I think that's what really did it. My experience was really tangible. This happens, then this happens. Then we measure this, etc. No theory, just practice. A bit like showing a child a rock dropping to the ground in order to explain gravity rather than giving them the whole theoretical shebang. You know? Edit. Sorry it's a bit rambling, I'm so damn tired. Sorry, I think I missed something. How does the Earth being round help you to know about the fuel consumption? Or did you just mean the transmission of the signal? That's a great question. I'll try to explain it as simply as possible. Ships all over the world are traveling certain distances. Let's say ship A travels from location A to location B, and ship X travels from location X to location Y. Based on weather conditions and detailed information about the engine type and cargo load, we can calculate that ship A used amount A of fuel, and ship X used amount X of fuel. When the ships come into port, we check in with them. Ship A, did you use amount A of fuel? Affirmative. Great, so we'll log your carbon emissions as such and such an amount, and you'll need to purchase so and so an amount of fuel in port. For this calculation to work, the distance traveled is absolutely key. That distance can only be calculated based on the curvature of the Earth. Imagine a beach ball and you draw two lines on it, both of the same length, one near the equator and one near the pole. Now imagine flattening the ball into a flat map. In order to read the map, those distances will actually look very different, because the map needs to be stretched or skewed in order to look flat. That is the sort of map a flat earther would use. You can't have a flat Earth that maintains the exact distances traveled that are measured all over the world at any given time. We are talking about thousands of ships and millions of journeys being tracked to within the meter. Our fuel consumption calculations are very good. We can estimate them almost perfectly based on known factors, and none of these calculations could possibly work if the distance was not absolutely correct. The distance is completely dependent on the fact that the Earth is spherical. In order for these calculations to remain correct and the Earth to be flat, the ships that are moving around the Earth at measured speeds and distances would have to somehow trick us into seeing them move, which we track via multiple technologies including satellite and something a bit more akin to mobile phone tower pinging technology, at totally different speeds than they actually do. Then they would have to calculate what the fuel consumption would be, based on the premise that the Earth is spherical, and the captains would then have to tell us a lie when they get into port, and also lie to the fuel vendors about how much fuel they need. They'd all have to be in on it, and they'd all have to be mathematical geniuses. Coming from all different countries, languages, companies, the very notion is ludicrous and is on par with, well, I won't say it. It would require a conspiracy to exist on a level that is not only impossibly complex and mathematically impossible, but it would also require almost every person who works at sea to be both a genius and a liar. Now, I don't mean this in a disparaging way at all, but the average captain of a ship that meets the emissions reporting requirements is just an ordinary bloke with a mid-level education, and there's thousands of them working all over the world at any given moment. These are not evil geniuses. They are middle-aged Greek men who don't like using onboard computers and think EU emissions regs are bad for business. These are analog processes. They can't just be intercepted and skewed to preserve the lie. It's just math. The only sophisticated tech involved is the tracking technology, and this is not one layer of tech. It's multiple layers that all sync up with each other, and again, some of this is very analog stuff. Essentially, the impressive techie digital stuff, which a conspiracy theorist might see as being compromised, is actually completely dependent on the analog stuff. which can't be faked and relies on thousands of simple working-class seamen reporting what they see on a big metal dial connected to a pipe in a great big rusty old ship. If the techie stuff was really compromised in some way, we would know. I convinced a flat earther, temporarily, by asking him if it was possible for a sphere to be so large that you could not tell it was a sphere by simply being on the surface of it. It took him a while. I used an analogy of an extremely long line that was so slightly curved you could not tell. So by looking at a small section of it, eventually he said yes to the sphere, and I told him that was how big the Earth is. A few days later, he reverted. Most of these people aren't mentally stable. They believe in a lot of conspiracies. Edit. Corny edit. But as connoisseur of flat Earth content, my personal favorite is Professor Dave on YouTube. He is a underappreciated dude who just had a science channel on YouTube and got brigaded by flat earthers for an unrelated video. He made like 6 video responses in total, just owning these guys, but they eventually gave up. Check it out. What I like to do is use telescopes. This telescope is strong enough to see distant stars and galaxies, yes? Okay, look out this direction across the ocean. Can you see Europe? Edit. RIP my inbox LOL. I spent about a year infiltrating the flat earth community on Instagram. I garnered a decent following with an account dedicated to flat earth travel photos. An intentionally absurd premise. In that time, I learned quite a bit about the community, including how to discern the trolls from the real deal. The majority of legit flat earthers are extremely distrustful of anything the government says or does. These same people are 9/11 truthers, Holocaust deniers, and anti-vaxxers, and they connect these conspiracies together. Many of them have also attached flat earth theory to religion, magic, or mysticism. Before my infiltration, I'd always considered conspiracies fun, like they were the fan fiction of real life. Now they mostly make me sad. For all the phony accounts like mine, there are still plenty of people out there willing to drop a couple of $100 on a flat earth convention. Not me, but got a flat earther to question his beliefs and hopefully critically analyze them by giving him the proof he asked for, to which he responded, "Mainstream science and media are lies." I asked why he asked for proof if he could just disregard it as lies either way, then told him that since he required no proof or evidence against to believe something, it made him the easiest person to deceive, and that it seemed pretty sheep-like to me. He deleted all of his flat earth comments and hasn't posted about it since. ETA, Holy Round Earth. Batman, thank you for the karma and awards and gold. I promise I'll screenshot next time. ETA 2, he didn't block me. I can still see everything he posted, and the OP thread creator also said the comment disappeared. Shame. 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 Okay, I get the question is funny and all, but I actually did believe, for a time, that the Earth was flat. I was raised in a very religious family, and basically came to the conclusion that the Bible declared the Earth was flat. Because since I believe the Earth was created in 7 days, the idea that God set the stars in the sky in 1 day made much more sense if the stars were simply points of light in a sort of snow globe formation, extrapolated onto a bigger scale. Otherwise, he took 1 day out of the 7 to make a septillion or so balls of flaming gas, all with their own planets, and set each one into galaxies before breaking for lunch. It just didn't make sense to me that he would spend 5 days on one planet and make the creation of the trillions of other stuff in the universe a little footnote. I was confronted about this belief a couple times, only one of which wasn't laughed off. That single person who engaged started a serious discussion, presenting much more evidence for the globe Earth, and eventually told me to watch Carl Sagan. The Cosmos series was on YouTube, and once I watched it, I had to know more. Finally, a video from the channel Minute Physics convinced me, in no uncertain terms, that the Earth was round. All it took was one quote, which I still remember leaving chills down my spine. You should have put a serious tag on this question. I once had a conversation with a professional UFC fighter and outspoken flat earther. I tried to explain how Archimedes was able to prove the Earth was round just by using his shadow. I mentioned air travel and how Hawaii and Japan are not 20-plus hours of flying apart. but what I think got through to him the most was seasons. This particular guy was Brazilian. I explained that because the Earth is round, it's possible to be winter in Brazil and summer in the USA and vice versa. He nodded and stared off into the distance silently, and the conversation was over. I don't think I converted him, but it gave him significant pause at the very least. Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories.